Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, and today we are going to be doing my May wrap up. So it's been a little bit since I've done a wrap up because yeah. In fairness, in March I read 31 books because it was Ramadan, and then in April I was kind of in a slump, so I didn't read that much at all. So I didn't do it. So we're finally back at it. We'll do our May wrap up. Again, there's not too much because I was kind of coming out of my slump in May. So there's really actually not that much, and I think most of them I've actually already spoken about or will be speaking about in vlogs. So we're going to make this short and snappy. Also, I will say, I have this really weird problem this year where I'm just not remembering books as much as I usually do. Like usually I'm pretty good for remembering like really like just most of the details about a book. But for some reason this year, head empty. Like, I don't know, stuff isn't sticking in there. So take from that what you will. I suppose we will just jump right on into it. So I read 8 books in the month of May, and as I said, a lot of them were pretty short because I was trying to get myself out of the slump, and I think I've done it. I will also say I am playing a lot of Hades on the Switch, so I kind of started listening to audiobooks while I was doing that, which helped me get out of the slump, and also that will probably continue into June, so just so you know. So the first book that I read in May was The Bone Shard Daughter by Andrea Stewart, and I unfortunately gave this a 2 stars. So I will say, like, I do think I should have liked this more than I did, but I just kind of like, do you know when a book, it feels so 3-star the whole way through that by the time you get to the end, you're so annoyed by the fact it was so okay throughout that you actively dislike it. That was kind of how I felt about this book. So I don't think it's a bad book. I don't think it's like poorly written or anything like that. Like, I did have a couple of problems which we'll talk about, but like overall, like, it was okay. It's just like by the time I got to the end, I was so annoyed by the okayness of it that I actively disliked it, and so I gave it a 2 star. I was reading this for a vlog, and then I ended up cancelling that vlog because basically all of the books that I was reading for it, I just kind of had no thoughts on. And I was like, well, this is very boring. So yeah, so that's what happened with that. I just, as I said, I don't really actually have that many thoughts on it, just that I was kind of bored throughout. It follows a couple of point of views, but like one of the main ones is the Emperor's daughter, who has some gaps in her memory, and she wants to be her father's heir, but he won't let her because of all of these problems that she's having, and so she is going out of her way to try and learn this bone magic that he has, as well as trying to reclaim her memories and all of that. I just feel very meh about this entire book. I cannot remember a single thing that happened in here. Even while reading it, I was just reading and just nothing was going in. I just absolutely did not connect to the story whatsoever. I didn't find any of the characters particularly interesting. I didn't care about the plot itself. I felt like, as I said, I felt like nearly detached from it. I was like, I should be intrigued by this because like it has a lot of like kind of buzzwords and like things that I have liked before and I do like, but for some reason there was just this weird disconnect, and I do think a lot of it actually comes to do with the fact that it's written in first person. I don't mind first person, but it has to be like really specific uses of first person for me. Majority of the time, first person doesn't work for me in a fantasy book. Like, here's the ranking of perspectives. Third person past. Everything else. I was like, majority of the books I pick up are third person past tense because that is what most fantasy books are written in. And here's the thing is, like, obviously every single perspective, like, there are authors that write it well, so whatever, but as I said, it just really didn't work for me. And I think the main reason that it didn't work for me is because it is all, obviously it's all I, but there's however many different points of views, and none of them felt distinct from each other. None of them, I felt like they had their own very distinct narrative voice. They all read the exact same, and so I think that's kind of where the disconnect came in, because they didn't feel different. It was the exact same writing style, it was the exact same voice, and yet they were all supposed to be different eyes, but they weren't. And so I think if an author does use first person, I like it in romance books usually, even if there is 2 points of views, but usually that's because I think a lot of romance authors, because it is fairly common in romance books, are pretty good at, you know, using the first person and really making distinct voices for them. And then also I don't mind it in, like, for example, Percy Jackson, that is first person. I actually prefer Rick Riordan books that are written in first person, because again, they are following one character. Obviously, my favorite series that is written in first person is Robin Hood. The first year trilogy is first person past tense, but again, that is one narrator. So I think if I'm reading a book and it's first person, I want it to be only one point of view. So yes, that's just me being, like, I think a personal preference thing though. I know a lot of people don't even notice. It's just me being me. So moving on. So we're going to talk about my only 5-star of the month and my third 5-star of the year. And it was Happy Place by Emily Henry. I loved this so much. I loved it so much, guys. Also, this is an example of I don't mind first person. This is actually first person present tense, but it's a romance book. And also it is only one perspective. We actually only get Harriet's, we don't get Wynn's perspective in here. And so that is why it works. I don't think I'm gonna bring up perspectives, point of views anymore in this video, okay? So I'm sorry. So this follows Harriet and Wynn, and they are the perfect couple, except they're no longer a couple. Every year, this group of friends take a holiday to this cottage that one of the friends' parents own. And this year they find out that the cottage is going for sale, and so Harriet and Wynn are both there, but they broke up 6 months ago. And so they don't want to ruin anyone's nice time, and so they pretend to be together. And obviously it's a romance. I love this. I have read 3 Emily Henrys now, and this is my favorite one. It goes, though I will say I would recommend more widely beach read than this, but this was obviously my favorite. But like if someone was like, oh, which Emily Henry should I read? I would probably be like, oh, beach read. Just because, like, this very much played to me, you know, what I like. I love a bit of angst. There is so much of it in here, but there was also so much sweetness, and just, once again, it deals with a lot of hard topics, and oh, I just had such a good time. I read it in one day. I had the audiobook on. I was smiling. I almost cried. I was giggling out loud, and I was like, please, nobody look at me. Like, I'm fine, I swear. I just had such a good time. And as I said, like, it just really worked for me. Like, yeah, oh, it was so good. I can't do words, especially when I'm talking about books that I really love, okay? But I had such a good time with this. Then we get into books that I have actually read in reading blogs. I think everything else, yes, everything else on this list I have actually already spoken about or will speak about. So we're not gonna talk about them for too long. But the first one, so our book number 3 of the month, was 9 Goblins by T. Kingfisher. So I read this in a 24-hour reading vlog, which I will leave linked down below. So I gave this a 3 stars. I liked this, but I didn't love it. I'm slowly making my way through all T. Kingfisher's books. So this one is about some goblins, and there is a war with the humans, and they are charging towards the battlefield, and all of a sudden this wizard basically makes them vanish. And to me, like, I didn't really care about the plot or the characters or anything, but I really liked the writing in here. Like, it very much had that humor. I know a lot of people just say her books in general have humor, but I've never really found a lot of her, like, fantasy books humorous. Like, I think objectively, yeah, there are some, but like, they've never really made me, like, kind of chuckle, whereas like her fantasy romance ones do actually make me laugh. And so this one, but this one was definitely one where just like the, like, poking fun at themselves and goblins in general, and like that tongue-in-cheek nature of the storytelling just really worked for me. And so that's why I got a 3 star. I didn't really care about the book overall, but like, I did really enjoy the writing. And so then number 4 of the month and number 2 in that 24-hour reading vlog was Low Volume 1. I did not like this. I give it a 2 star. I didn't really like the art style very much. I really liked the art on the cover, and I was like, oh, stunning, whatever. And I had heard people talk about it, and so I was like, okay, I'll read it. And then the art style inside I didn't really like, and I also didn't really like the text or whatever they used for the speech. I didn't find it very pleasing to my eyes. And then, not to mention, like, the whole thing was kind of like plot twist driven instead of any sort of actual plot driving it forward. It was like, what can we do to try and like shock the readers? And so like it just kind of got a bit annoying. And it felt like the characters changed their personality depending on who they needed to be in that scene at that moment. And like, it's like, okay, there's definitely not enough development for all of these changes, and like there's then like these time jumps and everything, and it was just like, it felt a little messy. And I also was just not impressed by the fact that every single woman was in a bikini while all of the men were fully clothed, basically. Yeah. Moving on. Also in that 24-hour reading vlog, yes, I did A Quiet Life in the Country by T.E. Kinsey. So this is a cozy mystery series. It's the first book in the Lady Hardcastle mystery series. And so it follows a woman called Lady Hardcastle and her maid Flo, and they have a past. And now they are just settling down in the countryside, and they go out for a walk and they discover a body. And they immediately think the wrong person has been arrested, and so they begin to investigate by themselves. And these are definitely books, like, I have already basically forgotten it, but I remember having fun. So like, they're definitely not going to be like a favorite series or a favorite anything, but like, they're fun to put on while I play the Switch and just like listen to. I really enjoy the characters of Flo and Lady Hardcastle. I really enjoy their relationship and their banter, and like how, again, they just like very much make fun of each other all of the time. It's a lot of fun. The mysteries are like, okay, I like them. I think sometimes, because you'll see another one in a minute and I have the same problem, is there's like 4 mysteries and they're only like 200-page books. I don't think you need to be having like 4 different mysteries in them. It just feels a little much. But I did overall enjoy this. As I said, the shining stars of it are the characters, and it's definitely like, when I want something just quick and easy to listen to, I definitely am willing to put them on. So then the last book that I included in the 24-hour reading vlog was A Murder at Spindle Manor. So this was the winner, I think, yes, of SBFBO 9. And I decided I would listen to it. I read it. I read it on Kindle Unlimited. And I give it a 3-star. It was very, again, I had very similar feelings about this as I did actually about Lady Hardcastle, except for the fact that like I didn't like the characters really, or connect to them or care about them very much. And so that's what kind of gave it the 3 stars, because I didn't care about the characters or anything. Like, I don't think it's a bad book or poorly written or anything like that, but it just, nothing about it really stood out to me. Like, the mystery was interesting enough. I think we got to 75% and the reveal started happening, but oh my god, it dragged on so much. Like, it was very much like, let's gather around the table and I'll tell you. And I was just like, okay, have you told us yet? Have you told us yet? And it was like, okay, you do not need to spend the last, I think it was about 30% of the book explaining what happened. Like, that is way too much. And like, again, it just ended up like they kept adding more and more mysteries, and then like the whole point of like the book starting and how we got there didn't even get resolved. And I get that it's a series, but like, that's just kind of annoying to me. So it just didn't really work for me. Again, I don't think it's a bad book. I think actually I was really intrigued by the world building and the fantasy elements of it. I was fascinated by all of that, like the creatures that we get mentioned, and like just like the way that was woven in. I did find it extremely impressive, and that was probably my favorite part of the book. But other than that, it was okay. I didn't love it, I didn't hate it, it was okay. Then back to Lady Hardcastle. I think this was actually the point that I started playing Hades, and so I was like, I need to listen to something, and I was like, hey, I'll read the next one of those. And again, I'm not going to talk about this much because I will be doing a reading vlog where I'm reading until I get a 5-star. This was a 4-star, so this was not the one. And so obviously this video has not come out yet, so I don't want to spoil my thoughts on everything, but like, very much the same feelings as I had with book 1. I liked it, I didn't love it. I really enjoy the 2 dynamic, but again, there's just like a bit too much going on sometimes. And then the last book that I read in May was Turning Darkness into Light by Marie Brennan, which I actually have on my shelf. Turning Darkness into Light by Marie Brennan. Again, this will be in the reading until I get a 5-star. This was not the one. Again, it was a 4-star. But I won't talk about it too much, though this is technically book 6 in the Memoirs of Lady Trent series, but it isn't actually really, like, it's set in the same world and everything, but it actually follows her granddaughter, not her. And this is probably my least favorite in the series, but I didn't dislike it or anything. It's still a 4-star, but like the others were, well, books 1 to 4 I think were like pretty high 4 stars, and then book 5 was like a lower 5-star, a lower 4-star, and then this is probably an even lower 4-star, but like it's still a 4-star, so it's still, I liked it, but it just didn't really work for me. And there's like kind of 2 main reasons for it, and one of them I can't really talk about because of the fact it would spoil the end of book 5, and that's the reason why book 5 kind of got a bit lower down. So basically, what I love about this series so much is the fact that, like, obviously it is a fantasy series because there's dragons and they're studying dragons and all of this stuff, but I really like the realistic nature of it. Like, this is just part of their world. It's not fantasy to them really, but there was something that happened in book 5 that really did like make that pivot to be like, this is fantasy, and I was like, oh, this is happening in the final book. And I kind of had mixed feelings on it. Like, yeah, I still have mixed feelings on it. I still haven't figured out my feelings on it, but I gave it about 4-star. Overall, I liked it, but like, definitely that thing like kind of threw me. I was like, how do I feel about this? And obviously, because of that thing happening, that very much plays into this. And like, while I did enjoy how that thing was discussed and stuff, I still don't know how I feel about it. And I will say also, like, I feel like some of the topics in here, like, Murray Brennan, like, does a really good job in some of the books, and in a lot of the books that I've read from her, of like handling a lot of different topics with a lot of nuance, whereas in this it felt very much like hit over the head. And like, I don't mind that, but I think in adult books I prefer when it's a little more like subtle. And then the that was just another thing. And so then the other thing is, this is a book that is kind of about language and linguistics and all of that, whereas the first 5 books, they follow Isabella, and she is a scientist. She is a naturalist. She wants to study these dragons, whereas this is about her granddaughter who wants to study languages, and I'm very much more interested in the science than the language. And so if you're someone who is fascinated by languages and how they're formed and all of this and the study of them, then I think this would probably be your favorite in the series. But to me, it's just not as interesting. So again, that is kind of personal preference, but hey, this is about my enjoyment, not anyone else's. So yes, so those were all 8 books that I read in May. Again, a lot of them were pretty short, but hey, it's progress. We're getting there. So yes, so thank you guys so much for watching. I do hope you enjoyed. If you did, subscribe. And I'll see you all in the next one. Bye.